Hello again, and welcome to another episode of No Prize Podcast. I'm your host, the Professor Bud Young, and with me, as always, from across the pond is Johnny the Machine Hughes. How are you, Johnny?
I am very well. How are you?
I'm fabulous. And Lucas, how are you today?
Hey, what's going on? The Reds are coming. Reds are coming.
Well, was that the Redcoats are coming? What is that? July 4th?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Yes,
it's
it is.
Independence Day. Johnny.
Mhm.
Happy kick out the British Day.
Well, it only took a few more years, but
Do you want to get political? I woke up this morning and it dawned on me America is the only place in the world that celebrates getting its own in the same year every year celebrates getting its independence, and then a few months later celebrates destroying the native people that live there. It's great. Talk about an ironical oxymoron.
Unfortunately, it's true.
It's like 1 minute you're saying, "Hey, great, look at us, we threw off the chokes of the British," and now we're saying, 4 months later, we're saying, "Let's destroy the natural habitat and the people who live here anyway." It's like, come on, which one is it? In today's world, really? Oh well.
Well,
What are you gonna do? Change the
any
Washington Redskins name and no more Cleveland Indians in baseball.
well,
Okay.
just a little bit more about that. That is kind of interesting. The whole Washington, because with all the political blubber that's going on around right now, I didn't think it would eventually come around to the whole Washington Redskins. But yes, they are now talking about that whole deal of changing their name. So that was pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, this time I think they got the momentum, and it's probably going to happen. But they tried to do it a few years ago, and everybody kind of, even all the Native Americans were like, "Well, we don't care. we like the name actually."
Well, they'd like it better if they had a decent football team.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I don't know. Well, I don't know. How do you think the Patriots are going to do with Cam Newton there, Johnny?
I think they'll have some big wins. Depends how healthy he is. If he lasts the year, you've got a chance. Um, you've got to remember that the AFC East has got to be, and I know the Dolphins are in there, but they're the cream of the crop right now because the AFC East is pretty dire when it comes to quality of teams.
I
I
will
think
be
it's
happy.
probably the weakest. I think it's the weakest division.
Well, they've been the weakest division for a long time. That's why the Patriots were on top for 20 years. But
The NFC East was the worst for ages. But
well,
then
I will be
Yeah.
happy as long as we get a season, which is, I think, still up in the air. Even though they're starting to practice, I don't know if we're going to actually play the games. But anyhow, we have very few books again this week. Did you guys see the solicitations for like August and September? It really seems like it's still bare bones. Like even September, there's no Black Panther on the schedule, no Doctor Strange on the schedule. A lot of these, there's a lot of a few new books, but not a lot. So
Well, it's funny you should mention that. I was looking at comics list earlier today, and for the Wednesday, the 8th of July, you've got books like a trade paperback about Spider-Man, you've got Black Panther, Agents of Wakanda, you've got Doctor Strange, Empire Zero, Fantastic Four, Ghost Rider 7, an Immortal Hulk trade paperback, a Marvel monograph of Frank Choi, a poster book for Spider-Man, Marvel's X, number 4. Is anyone even reading that? An omnibus of Miles Morales, two omnibuses of Conan. It's like graphic novel, trade paperback, and then of course X-Men God Love Man Kills extended cut for some crazy ass reason. So it's trade paperback heavy.
it's
Crazy.
very, very trade paperback heavy, and it's like very short on new material, and even like I think we discussed this. They must have warehouses full of stuff that's ready to go. And what are they waiting for? So
More
I don't know.
comic shops are open.
Yeah, I guess. So anyway, so let's go to the digital only Hawkeye Freefall number. Is it 6? Number 6.
Number 6.
It's the final issue of this series. with Matthew Rosenberg on writing, Otto Schmidt on art, with letters by VC's Joe Sabino. We have a cover by Kim Jacinto and Tamara Bonvillain. And this has been a kind of a weird series all through, right? So I think that we've reviewed the last couple of issues of this, and it's been confusing, I guess, to say the least, because we didn't know what Hawkeye what he was doing. So anyway, Hawkeye was running around supposedly as Ronin, doing vigilante type work against the Hood, who in the first issue of this limited series walked free from a judgment where Hawkeye had captured him. So Hawkeye, wanting to put the Hood back in jail, starts his own vigilante campaign against the Hood as Ronin. And then we find out that he's got this Skrull that he was working for him and disguising himself as Ronin so that people would not think that Hawkeye Clint was actually Ronin, who gets killed earlier in this miniseries, and then we find out that the Hood has hired Bullseye to find out who Ronin really was and to take him out. So starting this issue, we see Clint as Ronin. In the first page takes out Captain America, which really shouldn't happen, but I mean this is all Captain America is in it for like one panel where Hawkeye shoots him in the chest, and then we find out Bryce, who was working for the Hood but had kind of betrayed the Hood to Hawkeye and was feeding him information. Bullseye found out about this and fills Bryce full of arrows, and Hawkeye in his it feels bad about this now and takes him to, no, not a hospital, but takes him to his ex-girlfriend who he broke up with last issue, Night Nurse, who can't save.
who's due in Spider-Woman #2 whenever that ships.
Oh, yes, whenever that comes out. True.
I know.
So Night Nurse fails to save Bryce, so Bryce dies, and then Hawkeye decides it's now time to take out Bullseye. And to take out Bullseye, who is now running around as Ronin, making Hawkeye look even worse, making him look like the villain in this piece, Hawkeye dresses up like Bullseye. And
wasn't this the plot of Daredevil season 3?
You know what?
Right? Bullseye dressed up as Daredevil to do some bad shit, and then Daredevil put on his original black uniform to sort it all out. It's a sit. You know what? I don't even need to read the book anymore. I've seen that season. Well, I've seen half of that season. I got bored, but never mind.
So I guess the major twist in this book is, Hawkeye takes Bullseye out in a couple of pages, which surprised me, and then he puts on his old purple suit and robs a bank that is a front for the Hood's money laundering scheme or wherever, steals about $3 million from that bank, and then goes and says he's gonna fight the Hood. He throws the money at the Hood's flunkies so that they won't interfere with this fight, and then Hawkeye beats the ever-loving piss out of the Hood. And apparently in the duffel bag was not the money, but a demon that Hawkeye off panel picks up from Count Nefaria, who when he opens the bag, steals the Hood from the Hood, turning the Hood mortal. And then Hawkeye Hawkeye finishes beating the crap out of the Hood. But now at the end of the book, Hawkeye is now a villain, apparently, and that was like one of the Ox and Fancy Dan from the Hood's flunkies remark that he's one of us, he just doesn't know it yet. So apparently they've backslid Hawkeye from being a hero back to being a villain again. So if that's going to ruin, not ruin, but change the status quo of Hawkeye, or give readers interest to pick up the next Hawkeye project, I kind of think that this book was kind of off kilter from the beginning, very confusing, kind of hard to follow. I think that we all were kind of like, why is Winter Soldier and Falcon confronting Hawkeye about this and thinking that he's actually doing this stuff? Hasn't he earned enough goodwill? So to me, it's just confusing as to the motivations behind getting Hawkeye back into this new status quo. I like the fight with Bullseye, but Bullseye versus Hawkeye should be more of an even match. But you know what? I really think Hawkeye is a natural enemy for Bullseye because they both have similar power sets. And if you remember, Bullseye actually masqueraded as Hawkeye in the Dark Avengers. Do you guys remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, so I'm interested in what you guys think. I kind of thought this was a bit of a stretch. I don't really want to clobber it, but it was really kind of a bit of a stretch for me.
Nope. Clobber it. It's just a whole bunch of freaking garbage.
I am with
Come on, Marvel.
on this.
Trash this storyline. Trash this book. If you're gonna, first of all, you cancel Black Panther, which had a crazy ass storyline, but you're gonna let this go through? Really, Marvel? Come on, man. There's nothing redemptible about this freaking book. Why would you? You had the man. He's already in a freaking the Bullseye thing, right? But he's gonna dress up in his own costume to freaking rob a bank. That doesn't even make any freaking sense, man. And then you had the Red Hood, right, who was supposed to be this big bad baddie, but now all of a sudden he just rolls up and beats him, and that's it. Because I got this magical bag that I just popped up with, all of a sudden, and nothing else is explained. Oh, hey, here's a magic bag. Solves all the troubles. There you go, right? And then there's also a panel where it shows all the bad guys just hanging out with the Red Hood, right? And it just really disturbs me because one of them is the Rhino, who was supposed to be trying to be a good guy now, and the other one is Taskmaster, who is the guy that's hanging out with the Kingpin and Ravencroft right now. I know Taskmaster's all over the place, but come on, don't freaking throw him in all these freaking books, right? Because I love him, but Taskmaster is supposed to be a solo good guy, even though he's hired him for the money. But now you're just throwing him in with the bad guys now. That doesn't make any sense. Because Taskmaster has a special skill set. Don't just throw him in a book. If he's there in a book, he's supposed to be doing something specific, not just showing up in crazy ass panels.
Well, he's a flunky. He's a flunky in both books. He's a flunky in Ravencroft, and he's a flunky in this book.
Yeah, but at least he has a position in Ravencroft, right? Usually he's like the director of security or the guy that freaking shows up to be doing something specific, But here he's just a flunky. Man. I don't know what the hell. Don't do that to him. And what disturbs me more about the whole Hawkeye situation is that he's got a mentee, right? Kate Bishop, right? I already don't know what's going on with her already, but I do know is that there's that whole new superhero law that you got to be 21 and over in order to be a superhero. His whole storyline should be helping her or talking to her about what's going on, something along that lines. But now instead of being the mentor to whatever she's got going on, he's the bad guy. So now she's got nobody right now. And that's what's disturbing to me right now. Clobber this book, clobber what they're doing with the character, start over, freaking rip it out, Marvel. Freaking go back into the drawing board into this whole thing and then come up with something about it because Hawkeye deserves better.
So the interesting thing that I want to kind of maybe point out is how many people, now that these books are being released digitally only, right? So you can't even pick this up in the open comic book stores, right? How many of these people actually finished reading this storyline? I mean, they got maybe the first 3 issues, and then the final 3 issues they got digitally. I guess you really kind of have to be a Hawkeye fan to really kind of go out of your way to try to pick up the rest of this series, correct?
Yeah, I talked to a bunch of speculators last night. Nobody was even realizing that this book came out.
Well, there you go.
So yeah, there was Hawkeye is not needed. They really didn't need to do it to the man.
It was, I think the idea on paper looks better than the execution. So, I do think that Marvel needs kind of like a Hawkeye book, especially to capitalize off of his appearances in the MCU. But to kind of keep following the Matt Fraction version of the Hawkeye character, I mean, Matt Fraction did it better than anybody. Uh, let's backpedal and turn him back into maybe a competent hero. The 40 years previously to Matt Fraction's version of the character, he had so much character growth. He became the loudmouth braggart to the reliable Avengers supporting character to a leader in his own right in West Coast Avengers, and Thunderbolts, where he reformed a whole bunch of other villains. And now, with Matt Fraction's version, even though it was critically acclaimed, and I personally loved the Matt Fraction series, it turned him into an incompetent boob. And that version of the character, while funny and while maybe has its place in history, they've thrown away like 50 years of character development with Clint Barton's character. But Johnny, you seem like you want to get in on this.
That's the problem with Clint Barton, is so many times we call it character development, but it isn't character development. It's people just coming in and changing stuff, right? Becoming a leader of the West Coast Avengers is kind of a test for him. It's not a character thing. It's because he's always given a bit large about Captain America, saying, I can do better than you. I can do this. I can do it. Fine, off you go. Bug off to LA, get it sorted. And, that's the idea of West Coast Avengers. From there, very much like any number of Marvel characters, when they've been amended and taken the nuance out of it to meet the impact of the need for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the knock-on effect is these characters have to change to reflect what the audience are looking for. I'm going to club this book with Lucas, but for different reasons. Hawkeye turning heel doesn't really bother me that much. To be fair, Hawkeye doesn't bother me that much. I'm on the fence. You toss a coin, heads or tails. Green Arrow kicks Hawkeye's ass every single time. That's a DC in me coming out of it. I get it, but Hawkeye was a villain in the first place. So this is just turnabout's fair play. I'm clobbering this book because Lucas, I kind of agree. There's part of it that makes no sense. If you're going to have a key element that kind of is the crux of the story, do some setup. Let's see it. Not, it just happens off panel or off page. It's
yes.
like, what's the point of that? What is the point of that? It's like, you know what? I've painted myself into a corner. Let me just think of something. And it just, as much. But you love Babylon 5, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, and those episodes where Linnea spends like the whole 40 minutes telling you about the history of God knows what. At the time you're watching, you're like, oh man, I wish they'd just shut up talking about it. But you need it to work out what's going to happen down the line. There's none of that in this. There's not even spare one panel on how to set that up. The thing that I'm covering this book for is the digital element. All right? There are people who have paid their money to get this. They've put it on the pull list, on the subscription list. There are people who love Hawkeye, the people who love Otto Schmidt, which is fine because he's a great artist. And now congratulations, you've bought your 4 issues in a comic book store. Now you're gonna have to wait for the trade paperback to come out because that's going to come out, which is more money. So you're doubling down on this. And if you want to finish the story now, you've got to go and get an online subscription from Comixology or from Marvel Universe or wherever it is, right? So where's Marvel looking out for the fans? Here's the series you wanted, fans. The fans don't even get the full series, man. Well done, Marvel. Clobber.
All right. So
not that I had much to say on that one, of course. But,
No, but it is kind of funny because I think the three of us are coming from three different places, and as far as what the different reasons that you didn't like the books, and and I had my own issues with it too. And when I talk about saying it's a bit of a stretch, it was just borderline between bit of a stretch and a clobber. And I think it's my love for the Hawkeye character that kind of saved it a little bit, but still, you know.
I was
I-
wary how to rate this book, but then you started talking about it. I was like, man, this book. Your description is doing my head in more than reading the book.
It's well, the biggest problem with the book is what Lucas mentioned. It was that MacGuffin with the duffel bag and the demon inside the duffel bag. That was absolutely no explanation whatsoever until that panel. You know,
Right.
you didn't even know. You didn't even know he had it. I don't, and and forgive me if I'm wrong. I don't even know if Count Nefaria was even in the miniseries at all. And he just said, "Yeah, I borrowed this demon from Count Nefaria." I didn't know Count Nefaria had demons, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the whole Chekhov's gun rule, right? If you show the gun in the first act, you gotta freaking use it, right? But
True.
there was no gun. You didn't even show the guy that had the gun. You just had this random guy, come off the freaking quarter panel, and go, "Hey, here's the gun. Go ahead, shoot it." And the stories aren't supposed to work that way. You're supposed to develop about what's going to happen later on. I mean, just something, something about demons. This is the first time I'm hearing about demons.
Yeah.
Period. In this whole series.
Well, so the Hood actually has relationships with that Hood is actually he got from Mephisto, and the Hood has relationships in like the demon world. So that is the loose connection. Whether or not Hawkeye actually knows that is really, really questionable. So I have no idea how Hawkeye even knew. But you know what? Do you know what this feels like to me? Is did you ever play Dungeons and Dragons, and your characters, if you're the dungeon master, and your players are just like not following what you want them to do, and you just start making shit up. That's what this book felt like to me at the end.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, uh, and anybody have any good Hawkeye appearances that they liked a lot better than this book, other than all of them? I mean, I know I brought up the Matt Fraction series, but my favorite Hawkeye favorite Hawkeye imagery is that Avengers issue where he's firing the arrow at the cover with the Ant-Man on the arrow.
Right.
I think that was issue 223, I think, but
Yeah.
My issue with Hawkeye, and if this goes back years, is that every time I used to see Hawkeye and Mockingbird together, all I kept thinking about was Green Arrow and Black Canary. And that's kind of where I kind of drew the line, because Black Canary's got fishnets, so that's always going to get my attention.
Well, so the veil was a little too thin there, Johnny.
I get comic characters that can be copies of other, or homages, or likenesses to other ones. I totally get it. There's only so many original characters, but yeah, I've never really liked Hawkeye. Never. He's not been. If someone told me to buy a Hawkeye book or an indie book, I pick an indie book. I wouldn't even care who was on the create list. He's one of those characters that just does not appeal to me in any shape, way, or form. Soz.
Yeah. I don't particularly. I do have one cover that I do like. It's the Dark Reign Hawkeye, 2009, the #1, and it's just a straight shot on him. It's very detailed. The colors are amazing. He's looking like a badass, and which is kind of hard to do with that stupid helmet that they've always had him in. But he still does look badass. I freaking love it. But it's weird because people don't consider it a classic cover, but for me, it's still a really good one.
Well, that his purple costume is the iconic costume for me. So anytime that he can wear that is a good thing. So, I do love that costume rather than the I guess the form fitting one he's wearing now, the one that actually makes sense that he would wear.
Right.
The non costume, I guess
Yeah.
you'd call it. So, all right. So let's take a quick break, and then we will come back and we will talk maybe some Captain Marvel.
When you're looking for action, adventure, excitement, X marks the spot. It's Wolverine, Colossus, Dazzler, Nightcrawler, Storm. It's the most popular team in superhero history. Every month in Marvel Comics. X-Men. Look for Marvel Comics where X marks the spot.
We are back. Welcome back, guys.
Hey, man.
Hey.
Been a while.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Star. So we have like this last issue of Star coming out here. It seems like we're reviewing a lot of final issues and not a lot of new stuff, huh?
Yes.
So
It's good stuff. Good stuff. Yes, good. Just finish up on some of these really crappy storylines. Just finish them up. Yeah, just finish them up because speaking of finished final storylines. So I was just reading. I forget what year it was, but it was like the last Galactus storyline from Epic Illustrated, and it's a really great story until they just ended it very abruptly. So it was written by John Byrne. Really great story, and it was just like, oh man, this is great, man. This is the last days of Galactus. Then it was like, oh yeah, freaking. And then Galactus meets up with the Watcher, and then that's it, and no more, because apparently Marvel ran out of money to keep printing it, so they just cut it off. So.
That's happened a few times in the annals of Marvel history.
Hey.
The annals? How do you pronounce that?
Annals.
The annals. This is a
The annals
family.
is a whole different podcast.
So Johnny, why don't you tell us about the fifth issue of Star? Is it
right, so
fourth? The fifth.
So it's the fifth issue of Star. It's written by Kelly Thompson, art by Javier Pinar, with Felipe Andrade, colours by Jesus Abertov, and letters by Clayton Cowles. So basically, Star, Captain Marvel, Scarlet Witch are in a bit of a bind. They've got the Black Order chasing down Star for the Infinity Stone that she has. It's the Reality Stone. So Star makes a deal to get out of Dodge, I guess. That's the short version. This book reminds me a lot like Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Now, for all you non-Trekkies, this is the really bad one that was directed by Shatner. So basically, in this film, the crew gets hijacked by Cyborg, which is Spock's half-brother, travel across the universe to Shakari to give the Enterprise to God. And Kirk, in the final third of the film, turns around and says, why does God need a starship? And then all hell breaks loose. Star has the Reality Stone. Why does she need to make a bargain? Why can't she just... And it's done. This whole 5-issue miniseries has been about promoting Star, potentially, as rumors would have it to be a replacement for a certain captain who is alleged to meet her demise shortly, if rumors would have it. So this book is a huge clobber for me. It's pointless. It makes no sense. If you thought Hawkeye pulling the demon out of his bag, I was going to say something else there, was bad enough. But to forget that the thing that powers your character is a thing that can fix everything is just bonkers. And I like Kelly Thompson. I think Kelly Thompson could write some really good stuff. But this is just, the character's too powerful. I don't know what to do with it. I'm going to think of something and hope nobody notices that she could have just clicked her fingers.
So do you think that the writers or the people that have the ideas for Marvel, well, first of all, I guess I wonder if it's the editor that has the idea and then hires the writer and the artist to do it. So if it's work for hire, And then the second thing is whether or not they sell the idea on this, and then they don't really have a plan on how to actually tell the story or wrap it up. And that sounds to me like probably more likely is that they have this idea for, hey, we'll give this character the reality stone, but we have no idea what she's going to do with it, and we have no idea how we're going to end it. But the way that I think of it is maybe if they gave her the reality stone and it's limited because of, first of all, humans are limited, so maybe she can't access the full power of the reality stone. But
no, she does pretty well with
it. But at some point where maybe she figures out how to unlock, and I think that she did that in the last issue, where she kind of realized, oh, hey, I can do all this.
Well, in this actual issue, she transports Carol and Scarlet Witch to Mars.
Yeah.
So then, if you can put these two characters and send them to Mars, at the very least, why can't you do the same for the Black Order? You don't even have to change. You don't even have to warp reality. You can just, hey, watch, bottle moved. But I can't move this fan because, hey, that's a total different skill set. I'm done now. I'll let somebody else hopefully clobber this book.
Lucas, what did you think? What did you think, Lucas? Oh, Lucas's headphones are gone. So anyway,
here we go.
Oh, there we go.
All right. I don't know what happened. Yeah, so absolutely, there's nothing more to say about this book, right? You captured it all, right? You move the ball into the court, and then normally this is one of those. This is a self-looking ice cream. There's no reason to tell the story, other than this should have been the driving train to talk about the Infinity Stones, where they're at, and everything. We do know that Hector Bautista, he's the one with the other one. That's where they point out in the second page of the story. And this should be the driving train for the Infinity Stones. Now, when you're talking about what happens with some of the writers and like what happens with them, so for instance, like John Hickman and Donny Cates, we know that they talk with some of the other writers that might have something to do with their stories. They sit around, they Zoom when they whatever, and they say, okay, this is what's happening with the story. What's your character doing? Go. And then freaking write it out, and then freaking think it out, and then they do the research or whatever, and that's fine. But with here, it looks like there wasn't that much research done, which is a shame. Once again, just like you, I don't really like Kelly Thompson's stuff. I get surprised every time she comes up with some good stuff, but here, I don't know what she's doing with it. I don't know where she's going with it. One thing about the Infinity Stones that's interesting is that was about a couple of days ago on Disney's Instagram, Marvel's Instagram, they actually put out a thing about the Infinity Stones and what happened in the MCU universe. Like, because a lot of people have been questioning when Thanos freaking did the thing. What happened to the Infinity Stones? Were they destroyed? And you can go check it out. They seem to indicate that those Infinity Stones are destroyed, but that's not the way it works, right? When Infinity Stones are whatever, new ones are built. They just change colors, right? So the colors and everything that might have changed, but now they're different colors. Also, sometimes they grow like huge, as big as freaking cities. Sometimes there was a whole storyline with that. Sometimes their powers change. There's a whole thing. Sometimes there might be just 3. Sometimes there's just 4. Sometimes there's as much as 7 or 9. So
sometimes there's 10 because Hawkeye will need to pull one out of his ass to fix his story.
That's what we need from Star. We need Star to freaking come out and freaking change that whole freaking storyline. So because if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to fix all of Captain Marvel's freaking flaws and everything, I don't know what they're trying to do. But yeah, this is a Invisible Woman. I don't understand the purpose of the story. Maybe it changed because of the whole COVID quarantine thing. But other than that, I don't understand. One thing that I do would like people to keep an eye out for, and this is, I don't want to be a shill for Marvel. However, the SDCC that was canceled. But the big thing to look out for is there was a Funko Pop for Captain Marvel, but it was the Dark Captain Marvel. It's a limited edition. That one, I don't know how many there's going to be, but that might go fast. So there's supposed to be that one. There's supposed to be a zombies, freaking Marvel stuff, and then there's also a Stan Lee limited edition Funko Pop with him in his freaking dress robe and everything. So keep an eye out for that. But I believe that Captain Marvel is going to go fast.
All right. Well, as far as this limited series goes as a whole, I think it started with a little promise, right? I think when they introduced Star, I think I was like, oh, this could be an interesting character. It turned out, 5-issue limited series, and now it's done. And with the books now, with I want to say modern Marvel, when they're going to do a trade paperback, and this is again eventually going to come out in a trade, that you want to see a beginning, a middle, and an end with a book, and have these ideas kind of be resolve themselves. Back in Silver Age and Bronze Age Marvels, you could leave something open ended because someone's going to build on that and be able to take an idea maybe that's not fleshed out and run with it. Now the ideas are forgotten as soon as they're thrown out there. So what I would like to see really is, if you're going to introduce something like Reality Stone, wrap it up and figure it out and have it fit. And then the next writer that comes along that is going to forget everything that you wrote anyway, or not even have read what you wrote, and just do their own thing, then they can just kind of have that open open canvas to do what they want. I hate things being messy at the end, and I guess it would be an Invisible Woman for me as far as the limited series as a whole.
Right.
So
yeah, and it really is maddening because they brought this whole new character specifically for the series for something to actually significant to happen, and nothing's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it.
Well, let's blame a lot of this on COVID too, right? Because I mean, if we haven't, a lot of these miniseries had like this 3-month break where nothing was happening. So I totally forgot what happened in previous issues, and and I no longer care. So
I don't think you can. I don't think you can blame COVID for that particularly. I think it's just because you would have thought if you're going to take a 3-month break, you'd come out with a better ending, right?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, you had time to change some stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's not like 3 months, pens down, although it probably was, and just like print what we got. There's an opportunity there to do something about it, and people chose not to, thinking that the original story was going to be great. Now, I suppose where COVID has impacted is the fact that whilst we've taken a break from reading the new stuff, it kind of, when stuff starts trickling in, we wanted to blow our socks off, don't we?
Absolutely.
And
yeah, that's
the books that we're seeing,
mm-hmm.
because they're still mired in the storyline from God knows when, and nothing's been changed, nothing's been amended.
Yeah.
They're not doing that. They're just not blowing our socks off.
It's well, I think there's no rhyme or reason to really what has remained on the schedule and what has been pulled, right? And that's where my confusion lies, is why are we getting these, well, they're like kind of quietly digitally releasing the ends of these limited series, and the ongoing books we haven't seen. Like, we haven't seen an X-Men, right? We haven't seen Captain America. Like, all these books that are going to continue, we haven't, like the high profile books, we haven't seen much. We haven't seen a Fantastic Four issue, So where are they? I know that they're on the docket. We still have the Empire that is supposed to be starting very shortly. We got the Avengers tie-in book. We don't have a main book.
That was awful. That was awful.
But we don't have a main book. So I don't understand what Marvel's doing, but who knows? Maybe a year from now, we're gonna look back on this and just be like, "Wow, what a messed up time that was." But everything's smoothed out. But I think this is creating long-term problems. So I guess we'll see. So, Johnny, I saw you with some Ms. Marvel comics there, and do you have some Ms. Marvel stuff you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, I didn't particularly want to. I was just kind of bagging a bit as we were talking, but because we were talking about Star, so that was it really. There you go. My oldest Miss Marvel comic, number two. Number two.
I just read that like an hour ago.
Yeah, well, I've got two of them, so I don't know. Oh. That's poor planning by me. I've also got. Two number sixes. Tell you what, I'm terrible at this collecting malarkey. I don't know how I managed to get that. I've got two number 11s as well. So,
is it because you forget which one you have and you get it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's kind of Miss Marvel at the time for me was just a book that I picked up when I saw them. So in my head, I must have only had like 4 issues. It just so happens I bought the same 4 issues twice. First appearance of Deathbird. There you go.
Nice.
It says £10 on there, but I got it for less because I bought it with something else. So it's good. Yeah, that was it really. Just because we were talking about Star, and obviously she started off in Captain Marvel, trying to siphon off the Kree powers. That was it.
That was so. I went back and I read the first 2 issues of Ms. Marvel, and was shocked at some of the stuff because I actually I'd never read Ms. Marvel before the first run. But I knew that it was kind of like a mishmash of everything that was happening in the 70s, where the rotating writers, like, because they had the first 2 issues with Jerry Conway, and then the 3rd issue was Chris Claremont, and I know they kind of rotated out, and then Claremont and I think Mark Gruenwald did a couple, maybe, but maybe that was Spider-Woman, but yeah, it was, and then of course Ms. Marvel had a 7th sense. I didn't know that she had.
Like a danger sense, yeah. It's it's kind of in there. There's an episode. There's an issue of X-Men. I'm going to say it's around the 180s to maybe 210, probably 180s. And Nightcrawler's bamfing around Rogue, trying to tickle her to see where if it can trigger this 6th sense.
Oh yeah.
Because it's the one power she hasn't used yet. Because she uses the flight and the invulnerability and stuff. Although at that time she wasn't binary either, so she didn't have the energy absorption powers. And she just goes boof and throws out an arm and catches him. Spot on. But that's the 6th sense issue or the 7th sense. To me, the Miss Marvel character when she started, she is just an absolute mismatch of different things just to try and get a hook. It takes someone like Claremont to kind of break down. I mean, the first few issues, every issue, it's like, oh, I've got a headache. Oh, my headache. Yeah. Oh, it's turned me into Miss Marvel, and poof, off she goes and does whatever she needs to do.
And that was the other thing that kind of shocked me is you never saw in any other books Carol Danvers turn into Ms. Marvel. It was very much of like a. If you watch the Wonder Woman in the 70s when she does the spin and she turns from Diana Prince to Wonder Woman. Yeah. And that's kind of like how it was. And I was like, why didn't she kind of looks the same, except her hair is shorter, but
it's funny because that's how she started off with this whole headache identity thing. But then as I'll just move them all the way out of the way because there's like 23 of those. When this one started, she gets infected by something, and then she starts losing the whole identity thing and gets somebody else's powers and all that sort of stuff. And that goes on for God knows how long. And then when she gets the most recent storyline, she gets reabsorbed by Rogue. And somehow it's like this identity crisis element always seems to be prevalent.
Right.
Even in the life of Captain Danvers. Life of Captain Marvel, I think it was. Well, I say it should be in the Life of Captain Marvel. Captain Danvers. It was all about her identity as half human, half Kree, not what we thought originally. So I don't know if this schizophrenic element was always conceived, or they've just kind of said, well, that's how she started off, and that's by damn it, that's the hook we're going to fall on. We're always going to have this identity.
Well,
calamity thing
they
going
used that in the movie a little bit with the amnesia, right? So
on. Yeah.
it was
Right.
interesting, but yeah. So as far as like with Ms. Marvel, it just seemed like it was when she came out in the mid 70s. Was it mid 70s or late 70s? It looked like was it like 1974 or 1978 or
Yeah, I thought it was 74, right?
Hold on. Let me check in issue number 2. I'll open it up.
But it was very much it was very much, I think, focused on the women's lib and the women's lib movement, because they really kind of went out of their way to try to portray Carol as that strong, independent woman that was in charge, and teamed her up in the first couple of issues anyway with Mary Jane Watson, who was that template at the time for, I guess, strong
female
women.
sidekick.
Female sidekick, right? So
1968.
that was her first appearance,
Yeah.
and in Captain Marvel, but
Right.
Miss Marvel was 19.
So Miss Marvel number 2 was published on February 1977.
77. So
Yeah.
so late 70s. So when people think about comic books politically and complain about comics being too political, I mean, you got, all you have to do is go read an old Marvel comic. They're all political.
Yeah, totally.
So
ironically, of course, Jerry Conway did this and then went over to DC and created Power Girl, which is
Really?
exactly the same. Yeah. The whole women's lib thing again. So, hey ho. And of course, if you want to keep it Marvel, you can't have Miss Marvel in the 70s without talking about Spider-Woman. It's exactly the same, isn't it?
And they're around the same time too, right?
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Very much so.
All right.
Cool.
Lucas, you wanted to talk a little bit about Ravencroft, so
Okay. Yeah.
let's.
Okay, Ravencroft number 5, written by Frank Thierry, art by Angel Unzieta, colorist is Rachel Rosenberg, letterer is by Joe Sabino, and the cover artist, it doesn't even matter now because it didn't come out, as Kyle Holtz and Dan Brown, and it was a really excellent cover, which makes it a shame that this didn't come out. The story takes place at the Ravencroft Institute for the Criminally Insane, which is possibly one of those creepiest places in the Marvel Universe, and I think it's like the second most dangerous place on the planet. That's what they said. And this one, Mayor Kingpin, he's rebuilt Ravencroft into a superhuman criminal rehab facility. So he's got like all the big baddies here, and they're trying to get their lives together, freaking doing rehab, freaking sitting with a therapist and everything. But what we don't see is that covertly it's actually a front for the fact that in the basement there is this group of monsters called the Unwanted, which is a hybrid of like these vampires and failed Weapon Plus experiments. So at some point, the Wasted, which is that big freaking monster group, are now in control of Ravencroft after they overpowered the prison staff. They include the Security Council, which is like the Taskmaster, which I talked about earlier, Moonstone, and I forget who else off the top of my head, but there's a bunch of the bad guys, to include also freaking Jameson's son, Man Wolf, and Misty Knight, she's there and everything. So what it turned out, as Misty Knight's almost gasping for her life, is that one of the other prisoners there is the Punisher. Once again, this is one of those things that just shows up. All of a sudden, the Punisher's there because he was a prisoner. There was nothing indicated that this was happening. He just shows up, and he's got all of his guns on him. He's got all.
Well,
his
that's
guns,
what you do.
clips.
You lock him up with the guns.
I mean, and you can't tell me this was the prison staff guns because I see the rest of them. I saw what they have, and those are not the same as what he's got. All right, so you can't tell me there are personal staff guns. All right, um, so they're trying to shoot their way out, trying to shoot their way to the heart of everything. But it doesn't matter because they don't have much time because apparently the Unwanted they also have a time bomb. Once again, that's just one of those things that shows up. They have a time bomb, and it's right below any minute now. And it's going. And the thing is, the Unwanted they want to blow it up because they this whole place they turn them into evil and they want it to go away because they think that there's this evil that's within Ravencroft should not be rebuilt and everything. So it's a whole lot of stuff. It's a lot of craziness that goes on in the story. Um, if you're into that stuff, I think this was a great. If you're into craziness that doesn't make you sense, this is a freaking great story. It's a lot of action. The art, once again, by Angel Unzieta and with colors by Rachel Rosenberg are absolutely fantastic. There are some great freaking splash pages, some great panels that could have been good for the cover. But there are a few good notes on this in this book. So, for instance, this is the first appearance of this secret undercover group called Janus, right? Um,
Janice,
yeah.
like Chandler's girlfriend. Oh my god!
um, this is Janus Council is a bunch of people that I'm not really all too familiar with. And it gets kind of confusing because once I started trying to look up who these people are, but G.W. Bridge, or excuse me, George Washington Bridge, Malcolm Kokar. Malcolm Kokar was part of the whole Weapons Plus experiment before. There's Contessa Valentina, Allegra de Fontaine, Monica Rappaccini, James McDonald Hudson, and Madam Viper. It doesn't say which Madam Viper. It doesn't say whether it's the Kree Madam Viper, the shapeshifter Madam Viper, or the actual Madam Viper. Um, but what's interesting is that all three of those females, Contessa Valentina, Monica Rappaccini, and Madam Viper, they were all Madam Hydra at one point. Um,
Hydra.
yeah. So I don't know whether that's what's happening here, but that's another that's one thing. So another thing that's interesting is how it ended. They've got all these soldiers and security staff that are running around trying to secure everything, and then the two guys walk into where the unwanted were at some point, and the guy's like, "Oh man, looks like there's nothing new here," and one guy goes, "Well, yeah." And he just turns for some reason and just freaking shoots the other guy in the head. Like, all right, whatever. So it turns out that the one guy would have been was a part of the cult of Carnage, and he says, "Oh yeah, I'm just leaving this body here so that he has somebody to welcome God or Lord Null when he arrives." And then there's a uh, a big cemetery type tomb that's for some reason uh, inside Ravencroft, and it says, "Here lies Cortland Cassidy. May Null have mercy on the soul." So once again,
Right.
this is so. Yeah, go ahead, man.
So I'm just confused. There's a Monica, there's a Courtney, there's a Janice. Are you sure he hasn't been watching Friends? I mean, you know, is there a Phoebe in there? Is there one with really nice hair? Well, how's this work?
No clue. No clue. But it was a way to go all the way around the world just to get to this point, just to say, yeah, Null is coming, Null is coming, Null is coming. Yeah, we got it. In fact, I had a whole bunch of speculators, guys that read all this stuff, and they have no idea. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Um, but if you like fun books that doesn't make any sense, if you like that the art is great, it's packed full of characters that on paper it sounds great that they're in there, and they do well. I love the fact that there's a whole bunch of, I mean, there's some good guys in here, and they're not fighting each other, right? I love that, right? And it's just crammed and fun, right? It's just the ending is a little weird. Once again, it's supposed to be a fun book. It's not supposed to be a thinker. But I like this book. as a something just to read, and then okay, this is not going to be this is not going to freaking shake the world at any point, but it's just a fun read.
Good.
I I think a lot of the artwork in this is like designed for pinups. There was one particular one that it was the Punisher with his shirt ripped off, shooting his guns with Misty Knight down there, with the doing the same. And
Exactly.
I was like, oh yeah, someone's gonna pay a lot for that art piece. But as what the feeling that I got reading this book, and Ravencroft in general, is that someone at Marvel has like this huge backstory for the Ravencroft Asylum, and isn't really letting us in on it. It's Ravencroft has appeared in multiple issues of Amazing Spider-Man, Carnage. It figures frequently, and of course this whole reason for existence is because of Null, right? And the whole Carnage thing. But I feel like they kind of expect us to know a lot more about it than I think they actually ever told us. And whenever Ravencroft appears, I do instantly can think of Arkham Asylum, and I'm like, that's all Spider-Man needs is a rogues gallery of all of his crazy villains, kind of shoved there. And that's why when Ravencroft was around 30 years ago, during the Carnage storyline and stuff, I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, so Spidey's got an Arkham now, and now it's just more of the same. But I mean, the characters that are in this, while it does really totally make no sense that you have the Punisher in there with Misty Knight and John Jameson and D-Man, wherever the hell he comes from, and Kingpin, and Norman Osborn shows up out of nowhere, and it is like kind of like a mishmash of characters that you like in other books, but you're like, why are they all here? So on that end, they really don't do a really good job of explaining it, and I think it's just a vehicle to kind of bring you to that next step of Null is coming. And you know what, at this point, Null has been coming for a few years now. When the hell is he getting here?
I heard the commute's really bad.
Yeah.
I heard
Yeah,
he didn't have a face mask, so they couldn't let him on the train or something.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe everything's shut down and he just can't. He's just waiting for things to die down a little bit. So
that's crazy.
He's social distancing right now.
Yeah.
So.
All
right. So anyway, that's the Ravencroft was really a bit of a stretch for me. I don't want to collaborate because the art did look kind of nice. So it's good for the art.
Right.
So
you mentioned about the whole shirts off, everything. Man Wolf, he had some really nice panels where they showed that nice big jewel that's in the middle of his chest that apparently harbors a whole civilization in his chest. That's the first time that I've really seen it so prominently in any panel before, but it's there. And then one thing I did forget to mention is that Misty Knight, her arm, she now has these claws that protrude out from the freaking arm. So it's a whole new deal with her.
I think it was because Angel Anzueta wanted to draw claws on Misty Knight. That's the whole reason that she has it now. So I don't know. It is kind of one of those wacky books. But did you say you had any more news for us, Lucas? You said you wanted to bring some news up.
Oh yeah, the one other piece of news was Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. She's now going to have her own little storyline inside the Avengers video game. So that is two Marvel characters that are getting their own little things. So the first one was, of course, Miles Morales and PlayStation 5 game that's coming out, and now Kamala Khan, she's getting her own little storyline inside the Avengers game. So Good on Marvel for trying to push the diversity line that way, in a way that makes sense, in a way that will actually have an impact. And I know a lot of people are going to be waiting on it. So if you don't have her first appearance yet, and you come across it, go ahead and pick that up, because that might push that's definitely going to push this price of those first appearances up, up, up.
What is the first
Yeah.
appearance?
The first cover appearance was a Marvel .1. That was a pretty important one. And then the first appearance was Captain Marvel 14.
Captain Marvel 14.
Mm-hmm.
Which volume?
That is a good question. I'm not sure.
I might have to just check behind me under my
like-
C's, because I've got a whole. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a Carol fan, so chances are I might have that if I'm a little bit lucky.
I guarantee you it's not in that first volume. I can tell you that.
You're
That's not-
taking your
Yeah, August of 2013. So whatever volume that was.
you're taking your life into your own hands, finding which volume that is, because they reset her every year. So it'd be like
Yeah.
volume 36.
Volume 7.
Yeah. Volume
Volume
7.
7. Yeah,
Does
volume
that
7.
help you out, Johnny?
Nope. I'm just going to look under the C's for Captain and see what happens. It's fine.
Yeah, so just as Kamala Khan, she was at number 14, and then as Miss Marvel, that was the all new Marvel Now .1 number 1. So there you go.
There you go. All right. So yeah. Now, just to say, I saw the trailer for the Avengers video game, and it did look like that the whole game might be from the perspective of Kamala Khan. Where they I guess the Avengers had disbanded, right? And
Yep.
I guess Kamala gets her powers, and then she has to seek out the Avengers again, I guess. So maybe the whole game, which she's going to be the main character, which would be interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah. They definitely have. See, Marvel has to definitely push this new phase of superheroes, right? So you've got Kamala Khan. You've also got Moon Girl. Moon Girl, she's going to have her cartoon coming out on Disney Plus at some point. Once they figure out this whole thing with COVID, And then I forget what other. Oh, Nova, the new Nova. He's got to freaking have his thing. So they've got to start pushing this thing forward, rather than just give everybody lip service, right? Because I can only take these older characters so much, right? And the reboot of Spider-Man so much. Bring up some of these newer characters, right? Let them run through. Let's see what they got.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't mind reading some more Miles Morales. I really kind of like him as a character.
Yeah.
So.
Just don't look for his first appearance, and you'll get broken heart about the $3,000 you had to spend on his first appearance.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
3,000 for Miles per.
Yep. For the
Wow.
Ultimate Fallout, for the Ultimate Fallout number 4, Deja Dervik, it is now a $3,000 freaking book. Raw.
Sorry, what's the book called?
Ultimate Fallout number 4.
Wow, then that was like a throwaway book too. Because that was the dying gasps of the Ultimate line. Wow.
Yeah. Now you may be able to get the regular print, regular first print for maybe like $100, probably $300, but nobody really wants that. Everybody wants the other one, but that has him on the cover. And then it's gotten so bad right now that even like some of the previews that had him that came out before then, people are spending big money on that one right now. So keep an eye out for all the classic covers. So if you see him on a cover and it was an older cover and it looked like a really good cover, grab that. People are spending some good money on Miles Morales right now. Even even the one cover where he's kissing Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen, that's going for $15 to $20 right now, because people are definitely speculating on Miles Morales.
Wow. All right, so that's going to do that for this episode of No Prize Podcast. I wish everyone has a good Independence Day weekend, which it'll be over by the time this airs. But
probably had a good one.
All right. Well, we'll see you again in 2 weeks, and everybody stay safe.
Yep. Be be safe with fireworks.
Adios.